Hey everybody, how's it going? I want to talk to you about transitions because transition's something I always really never cared about. And I thought a transition was just like a time to take it easy. But actually, for some of us, transitions could mean the difference between a podium and not a podium, or a good race and a bad race. And what I discovered is it's actually kind of like free time. And I thought about the amount of work it takes to improve my swim, bike, or run. It's huge, right? The amount of training you need to do. But the amount of work just to improve your transition might not be so much, because there's certain tricks that Dr. Jeff Sankoff has come up with. And really, he wrote an article about this, and I read it. And before my last race, I followed it, and I had the fastest transition for T1, and I think the fourth or fifth fastest for T2. And then since then, I've sent it to a whole bunch of friends, and everybody's loved this article. So Jeff, tell me the importance of transitions and what they can do for your race.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I love talking about triathlon and I love talking about transitions because, like you, I generally didn't take them all that seriously until I started getting good in the sport, and then I started realizing that if I missed a position, I don't know, top 10, even a podium position, sometimes I'd miss it by seconds or a minute. Finding that minute or seconds, on the bike, the swim, or the run could be really hard. I mean, when you think back on your day, I mean, you exert yourself maximally. I mean, where am I going to find that minute? But then I'd look at my transition times and see how much slower I was than some of my competitors and realize, holy crap, I could have found that minute easily if I'd just been a little quicker in transition. But it's not just for people at the top of the race. It's for everyone. I know many people who are looking at cutoff times in Ironman, and they'll make it through the swim, they'll make it through the bike, but then they won't be allowed to start the run. And the issue is the very lengthy transitions that they take. So I think everybody in triathlon can benefit from making their transitions quicker. And I think that it is something that we should all be doing and just be considered as part of the race, because like you said, it's free time if you can just make yourself quicker.
So Jeff, the first thing you told me was to run, not walk. And the last race I had, it had a huge transition. I mean, it was like 500 meters coming in and another 200 meters going out, or something crazy like that. And every single person was walking it. But then you told me to run it. And just because I was the only one that ran it, I was first.
Yeah, and that's true in a lot of races now. The exit from the swim can often be, a quarter mile sometimes from where you get to your bike. And I get it. A lot of people coming out of the swim are tired, especially if you're feeling wobbly when you get out of the water. They don't want to run, and they're working on their wetsuit and stuff like that. A lot of people are just happy to be finished the swim. But the reality is if you look at it as a race, that's part of the race. That time is going into your overall time. And I know for me, I will be in races sometimes and I'm booking it, trying to get to T1, and people are like upset with me. And I'm like, it's a race. Come on. So now I understand, like a lot of people, they get out of the water, they're really tired, and they need to catch their breath. So maybe you're not running full bore, but I am sure that you can jog. Like, just do whatever you can to not be walking, because anything you can do to just increase your pace just a little bit is time that you're gaining back. I mean, if it takes you 5 minutes to walk a quarter mile, maybe it takes you 3 minutes to jog it, and maybe it takes you 2.5 or 2:15 to run it. So, that's a big difference. Those are big amounts of time that can really come in handy. And I like Andrew, you were trying for a long time to get under 5 hours, and those couple of minutes can be the big difference. And I have other athletes, same thing. It's like, I don't finish your race and be upset that you didn't get under your time goal because you wasted time in transition. And running, or at least not walking, is one of the easiest things you can do.
And then the second thing you said was knowing your way around, right? So figuring out where your bike is, where, actually knowing how to get from point A to point B to point C, and then doing it again. How do you know where your bike is? How do you remember that?
Yeah. And, this is a bigger deal, obviously, in the big races like 70.3 races here in North America, where you can have 2,500, 3,000 people in a race. I'll drop my bike off. And when I drop my bike off, there's only 500 bikes in transition, but the racks are like, they go on as far as the eye can see. So you can imagine when you show up race morning, they're no longer empty. I spend a lot of time on the day of check-in, and then again race morning, really making sure I know where everything is. And I can't tell you how many times I've watched people running through transition in the wrong area, trying to find their stuff. And that's just unfortunate, because that can easily be prevented. So what I always do for myself is I drop my bike off, and then I immediately look around. Okay, where is swim in? I locate the swim in, and I'm looking at swim in from my bike. Where is bike out? And I'm looking at bike out from where my bike is. So now I've oriented myself to how to get to my bike and how to get to bike out. Then I want to know where is bike in, so that I know where I'm coming back, and then where's run out. So I've got all of the entrances and exits sort of plotted mentally, and then I actually do the walk. So I go to where the swim in is, and I actually walk to my bike. I'm counting racks. I'm doing everything I can. I'm looking for landmarks sometimes, but the problem with landmarks is you have to be really careful. You cannot use anything that's mobile. I know a lot of people will say, look for the garbage can, but the thing is, the garbage can might be moved on the day of the race. So don't use anything that is potentially mobile. They used to allow people to bring balloons and stuff. They don't allow that anymore, and I think for good reason. Don't obviously use other people's bikes to help you identify where yours is, because that's not going to work on race day. And don't use things like your transition mat, because you don't want to be looking on the ground. You want to be able to anchor yourself on something that's permanent, and that's going to be highly visible. Now, remember, you might be coming in different light conditions too. So that's why I find using landmarks are not the best strategy. I actually, now Ironman's really good about labeling the racks. So they're, labeled A, B, C, and they have the numbers on them. So, and a lot of people forget their number. So I don't necessarily remember my own number, but I remember which rack. So if I'm rack A, or if I'm rack B, or whatever it is, I just have to remember that letter, and I'm good to go. So I spend quite a bit of time when I do gear check-in, and quite a bit of time race morning after I've set everything up. I do the walk again, because it's worth it to me to spend those few minutes making sure I've got the complete lay of the land. And it's paid off for me big time a few races, because I have run by people who have mistakenly run into the wrong rack area and have to go all the way back to where they can find an opening to switch sides. And it's just, to me, it's just well worth being absolutely certain, so that, you're coming off the bike, for example, you're tired, you're just thinking about getting on the run. You don't want to have to start mentally remembering. You want it to all be by rote. So spending that extra time the day before and in the morning of really, really pays off.
And then the next thing you talked about is setting up your area, right? So, I've seen guys with like my very first half Ironman, I had no idea what I was doing. I brought like all kinds of food and boxes and bags, and I had all kinds of junk out there. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll need this. Maybe I'll need some tools, and just have like a whole like place set up, which was completely cumbersome and awkward. What would you try to do to optimize your location, your area?
Well, I try to remind people, think about the steps that are absolutely necessary to go from swim to bike, and then from bike to run. And think about what you need for those, and then get rid of everything else. Like when I come out of the swim, I need to remove my wetsuit, remove my goggles and cap, and then I need to I wear socks, because I just don't. It's long distance racing for me without socks is not something I want to contemplate. I could do, a lot of people will skip the socks for the bike and then put them on for the run. That's totally fine. That's up to you. I just put them on before the bike. So I put on socks. What's the point?
If you're going to wear them.
Yeah, everybody's different. And I don't begrudge anyone who wants to put them on later. Sometimes they're easier to put on after the bike because your feet are a little drier. I totally get that.
All right.
But for me, it's like, I know I need my socks, and I need my helmet, and I need my bike, and that's all I need. So I've got a towel that I can just step on, and I get my wetsuit off, and I'm rubbing my feet on the towel quickly. And then I've got my socks on, I've got my helmet on, and I'm gone. That's it. I mean, I did a race in Virginia this year where a guy came out of the swim in my age group who got out of the swim, I think 2 minutes before me. And I got to my bike 2 minutes after him, and I'm out of there in like, I don't know, 30 seconds. And he's still standing there doing, I don't know what, because you add all of these steps that are just not necessary to what you need to get done. Like you said, you got food and you got all this stuff. You eat on the bike. You don't need tools. You know, I mean, if your bike isn't ready to go, then that's a problem. But you're not going to fix it with having all these tools there and jamming stuff in your pockets. Like, everything should be on your bike, ready to go. And when you come back for a bike to run, I mean, that should be the fastest transition. For me, it's just, you know, my feet are out of the shoes. So I leave my shoes in the pedals coming out, and I basically, I hit the ground running. My helmet comes off. My running shoes go on. I grab my sunglasses. I put those on, but then I grab my hat and my race belt, and I'm gone. And I'm putting those on as I'm running out. So it's a matter of prioritizing what absolutely needs to be done and getting rid of everything else.
So, I mean, I sent your article to a friend, and he said, yeah, but I'm really light skinned. I need sunscreen. So I'll have sunscreen there too. And I said, don't do that. You don't need to do that. You can bring it with you. You can put it on your hand, and you can run, or at the race, they'll probably have it at the exit here.
So they make sunscreen waterproof now. I mean, sunscreen is waterproof, and I put it on in the morning before I go to the race. So I feel like I'm covered for the bike. If you want more sunscreen for the run, they're often standing there with sunscreen as you're leaving.
That's right.
There is sunscreen. And I mean, I've been to Ironman races, especially in Hawaii. It was great, where they slathered it all over me. I had more sunscreen on me for the run than I've ever had. It was the one race I've ever done where I got zero burn because I had so much sunscreen on. You just don't need to be spending time in transition putting sunscreen on. I mean, it's there. And if you're that worried about it, then have it on your bike, or have a tube of it ready to go with you on your run, and just run out with that tube and then drop it at the first aid station. That's
right. Now, how about socks and shoes? Socks and laces.
Yeah, so like I use socks, like I said. Not everybody does, and if you don't use socks, that makes it that much quicker. But one of the things you can do to make getting socks on faster is to use ankle socks only. Don't use socks that pull up too high, and use socks that you can roll off. So what I do in the morning when I get to transition is I set up my area. It's quite a small area. I really don't take up a lot of space, and I lay my things out in sort of the reverse order that I need them. And so I've got my helmet sitting, and then I've got my bike shoes. And my bike shoes are actually on my pedals, so I already clipped them on. So I've got my helmet, and then I've got my socks sitting right in front of my helmet. And what I've done is I start with my socks on, and then I kind of roll them off my feet so that they're ready to be just pulled onto my toes and then rolled back up over my ankles. So it's really quick for me to put my socks on, even if my feet are a little bit wet. And I use socks that are, really light and thin and quite easy to pull on when my feet are a little bit wet, and just super easy to roll on and off. And then as far as shoes go for running, I use quick laces, and I think anybody who's not using quick laces should really seriously consider that. And there are a variety of different ones out there. Whatever you're comfortable with using, you should use. I mean, I use the Nike the Zoomers, the Alpha, whatever model they're up to now. I just remove the fabric laces that Nike puts, and I just put in my own elastic laces because I don't want to be tying shoelaces. That's just wasted time. And then if you're running and they come undone, you got to waste time fixing them again. So having elastic laces, you just shoes on, you're gone. You don't worry about them the rest of the run.
Yep. And last question about wetsuit. What's your thinking around how to optimize wetsuits?
So, I mean, the wetsuit, a good wetsuit will come off easier than, some of the not so great wetsuits. I've been really lucky. Our team, Life Sport, is sponsored by Blue 70 and the Helix. Which is their top of the line wetsuit, no question. But I mean, it's not inexpensive, but man, it is so easy to get off in transition. The problem is none of my swims have been that cold. So they've all been really borderline swims. And so I've wanted to swim in a sleeveless. So I've been swimming in a different brand, Aroka, which actually Roka's also come off very well. So those two, Roka and Blue 70, I've been very happy with. And, one of the things I'll do is I will put Body Glide around my ankles just to help facilitate, because let's face it, that's the hard part, right? I mean, I can, as you're running out of the water, you're stripping the top half off if you're wearing sleeves. Even if you're not, you're stripping the top half off. It's really when you get to your bike, you got to peel the rest off. And the part where it gets stuck is around your ankles. So if you've got some Body Glide on there, I find that can help. It's not perfect. If you have a tighter wetsuit, it's going to be still a little bit of a struggle, but as best you can. Sometimes I'll, stand on it and pull the photo. I mean, listen, it's tough for everyone, but I find getting my fingers down around my heel and just sort of slipping it over the heel is the best thing to do. Andrew, I think that, one of the things that's super important is practicing. I tell all my athletes, I try to give brick workouts, and I say, set up a transition, and I tend to really just give bike to run brick workouts because it's hard to do swim to bike, but set up a transition, time yourself, make it something that you really do often. And, Coach Juliet at Life Sport, she actually sets up her transition areas and just does a day of transitions. Like all she does is practice transitions, and it pays off. I mean, she wins by a lot, but she wins transitions by a lot. And I've been winning transitions this year too. And while it hasn't been the difference for my races, it's certainly not hurting. But practicing transitions is really, really important, because if you can make it something that is just second nature, that, here's what I'm doing when I get from the swim to the bike, here's what I'm doing when I go from the bike to run, then it just goes so much quicker. You don't have to think about it. It just happens. And the other thing I wanted to say was, you can facilitate this by starting to think about it during your race. In the last couple of 100 meters of the swim, I'm not thinking about how happy I am to be out of the swim. That is in the back of my mind. But what I am thinking about is, okay, I'm almost done the swim. What do I need to do in transition? Where's my bike? Yeah. And what are the steps I need to take? And then when I'm finishing the bike, I'm thinking along the same lines. I'm coming into the bike, and last mile or two of the bike, I start spinning a little quicker to get the blood going and try to limber up the legs a little bit. I'm getting my shoes off, and then I'm thinking, okay, where am I going in transition, and what do I need to do to get out on the run as fast as possible? So practice your transitions and then mentally rehearse them during the race, and you'll be even quicker.
That's excellent. That's great. All right, everybody, I'm going to link to the article down below in the description. I think this is one of the best things you can do, and it's your best return on investment for triathlon training. Once you've done all the hard work, this is the fun part, really shave a few more minutes off. So like and subscribe, and check out the article down below. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely.